This place has everything. In fact, the grass is damn green in Eugene.
That performance deserves a holy wallawa.
It's a feeling you cannot explain.
This place is louder than any other venue in the Big Ten.
This program is staged to compete and to win championships.
Welcome to the Big Ten, Oregon!
And welcome to that post-game show out west for that team out west. I'm Ted LaRue for the first time this year. Holy Wallawa! Ducks win, and the Ducks win big. Impressive victory right off the bat of the season. Game one of the season, 59-13. Oregon gets the job done at Autzen Stadium in what appeared to be an absolutely beautiful day out there on the West Coast in a stripeout. So I know some of you were here for the spring game edition of that post-game show out west. For those of you that are new here, this is how it's going to go down. In mere moments, I am going to give my takeaways, my opening monologue, if you will, in just a minute, my reaction to what went down in Eugene out there today. So we're going to start away with that, and then I'm going to get into my top performers. Okay, I've got a handful of top performers, and then on Monday's show, we're going to those are our candidates, and then on Monday's show, we're going to whittle them down to our Holy Wallawa winners of the week as the most impressive performers for Oregon this week. And then we'll break down the box score, and then that's where you come in. That's where you come in, the viewer, the listener. 541-357-6390 on the TSOW Talk and Text line. You can submit your text messages right now, and we could get to them and obviously get involved in the chat as well. A lot of audience interaction is my hope here throughout this program to talk all things Ducks being 1-0 this season. All right. Now that we get all that out of the way, it is time to dive into what happened on the football field here today in Eugene, Oregon. Time for my takeaways of this matchup, and this is a great place to start. This is exactly what a season opener for a team like Oregon against a team like Montana State is supposed to look like. Okay, now this is the last time maybe that I'll mention last year's season opener. And there's been a lot of teams across college football that haven't exactly looked the best in week one. But Oregon came out and they did exactly what they were supposed to do against a team like Montana State. And there's a lot of confidence, I think, brimming from myself and I think from other Duck fans out there over what happened today. Now, there are some things to clean up. There is no doubt about that, and we're going to get into that here in just a little bit. But this is a really good starting point, a really good maybe jumping off point, launching point, might you say, for the rest of the season. Because I think this game, among many other things, a big part of it was being able to build that confidence right out of the gate. And when you talk, and I think the biggest point that I want to really hammer home in this being a great place to start and the positivity is on offense. The offensive balance was as good as you can get. Okay. This was as balanced of a performance as you could possibly ask for. Okay. How about 253 yards on the ground? Okay. How about 253 yards through the air? Folks, it doesn't get more balanced than that. And, I'm kind of watching this game early on and I'm seeing what they're doing. Look, they're not, and you watch them offensively, they're not, getting ultra complicated. Okay. You kind of start off from the beginning of the game and they're looking to create an advantage with their offensive line. They're looking to push people around. They're looking to run the football right early in this matchup. And then when you take a look at the passing game, I think maybe during that 2-minute drill, they stretched the field a little bit, but overall, this was not an offense. And I think we've come to expect this from Will Stein in this hashtag Feed the Studs offense that he has here in Eugene. But this was an offense or a passing game that was not ultra complicated down the field. They did not stretch the field a lot. And that's kind of what I expected. They just had so much, I didn't expect them to put a lot on tape against a team like Montana State. And the facts was if this team came out, okay, and they were efficient and they executed high that this is the type of performance that they were going to get. And that's exactly what happened here today. So balance was as good as it could have gotten, certainly here today. So that was great to see on the offensive side of the ball. The guy that was running the show on offense, Mr. Moore, Dante Moore. Let's talk about him, because for old number 5, if you didn't know any better, and this was maybe you didn't know anything about Oregon, and maybe you're just like, maybe you're a basketball fan for some reason. It's like, okay, let's watch some college football today. Let's turn on the Big Ten Network, okay? You probably would have thought, oh, that number 5, that Dante Moore, he's a multi-year starter, right? He's a confident field general. No. He started a handful of games a couple of years ago at UCLA, and now he's a starting quarterback here. But here's what I'll say about this. I think that's what that last year sitting, learning the maturity it took to be able to do that. I think you maybe saw bits and pieces of that, and, well, you just saw the talent that Dante Moore certainly has out there. But, it was not only what he was able to do delivering the football, it was some of these checks at the line of scrimmage, some pass protection stuff, where he just looked like a calm, cool, and confident customer back there in the pocket. 18 of 23, 3 touchdowns in this game. Confident decision-making. Got in a rhythm early, and they built his confidence throughout this game. I think, there was a lot of things that Oregon wanted to accomplish in this game. I think a big thing that they want to accomplish, they did, is getting a lot of confidence and having a lot of success with Dante in his first start in an Oregon uniform. I thought he played great. And, the guys he's throwing the ball to, I think this. I'm going to beat home this drum multiple times and multiple times and multiple times, okay? But here's, I think, the fact of the matter. The wide receiver room in this game seems like the top 3 are maybe starting to separate themselves. I'm not going to go and say, well, it's one game against Montana State. This is the clear 3, okay? It's Montana State. All right, let's maybe talk about that once we get to game 3 or game 4. But I feel really confident that Decorian Moore, who you could see glimpses of the type of twitchy athlete that he really has, but he didn't have a big opportunity to break out. He was in kind of a hurdle off with Kenyon Sadiq on one of those drives, which was really fun to see out there. And then you look at 2 guys, both scored touchdowns in this game, Malik Benson and Gary Bryant Jr. Gary Bryant Jr., I think, is certainly going to be the leader coming out of the slot for Oregon this season. And then Malik Benson. We'll maybe highlight him here in just a minute, but I thought he had a really good game. He showed an ability to be able to use his speed and his quickness to be able to get open. I think he could be a really good weapon down the field. The more experience, once you get to game 2, game 3, game 4, and then, of course, we know that big game 5 against Penn State. But then you kind of look to this next tier of wide receivers. Hey, big props to Jeremiah McClellan getting it done on special teams, right? So, and then he was able to get a catch in this game. Kyler Casper is another guy I want to talk about. So he was kind of rumored throughout fall camp. Okay, yeah, he's looking to come off of an injury, maybe compete for a starting spot. But when I compare Kyler's performance to maybe the performance of some of these other guys, I just see him at a second-tier spot right now. I think they're going to take advantage of his size throughout the season, but I certainly think those 3 appear to be in a position to be able to break away and separate themselves as the top wide receivers on this team. And personally, once again, going to say it again, going to probably say it 1,000 times, okay, but against Montana State in this game, I feel pretty good the way those guys performed at wide receiver in this specific matchup. Let's go to the defensive side of the football. Look, Montana State, physical team up front. They wanted to be able to run the football throughout this game. And, the Bobcats found out, and they found out pretty early, our identity, it's not going to work out in this game. It ain't going to work out because this defensive line was fantastic for Oregon today. It was a dominant performance. Montana State found out really early that the run game just was not going to be an option. It was not going to be an option. So they had to turn to other things. I'll talk more about that here in just a minute. Amari Washington, once again, I'll say it because I'm sure it's going to be brought up at some point. Yes, it's Montana State. Yes, Amari Washington's got 20 to 30 pounds on a lot of these Montana State FCS offensive linemen. I get that, but he is an absolute animal. His speed and quickness, I think maybe is as big of a part in his performance today and how great he is as a defensive tackle as much as his size and his power are. But he was in the backfield every play. I mean, maybe if it wasn't every play, it was a 90%, 95% of plays. And he was able to clog the run lanes, which I expected him to do. And even in some pass rush situations, that's where you see his quickness. That's where you see his speed. That's where I think he's really going to be a threat. The interior pass rush, I think, is going to be really good for Oregon throughout this game. Now, you might raise your hand and be like, oh, Ted, wait a minute. Didn't you tell me throughout these last 9 months, didn't you tell me in fall camp, spring ball, all that stuff, didn't you tell me that this edge room was one of the best parts of the team? Didn't you tell me that this pass rush was great? And wait, they didn't have, maybe they didn't get home as much as Ted promised they would. But I will say this, Montana State adjusted when they knew the run game wasn't going to work. They adjusted to the pass game. Very quick pass game. I think a lot of the quick releases, maybe neutralize some of the pass rush. Shout out, I'd say, to Tatum Tuioti. Because I thought he was beating his guy consistently on that side of the football. But he just, like I said, he didn't get a lot of opportunities because they didn't have a lot of medium to deep passing concepts where it takes time to be able to develop. They wanted to get rid of the football quickly, and that was something that they were able to do. But that defensive line, it was like, hey, I said it in the preview, stop the Bobcats run game, and you stop the Bobcats. Look what happened. Look what happened. Last thing I want to touch on here with my takeaways is the secondary. Hey, there's a lot of good things to be able to take away out of a performance like this, but once Montana State did adjust and they got it to Taco Dowler time after time after time after time, and that was their passing offense. And when he continues to get the ball, some of this drag concepts across the middle, outbreaking routes, slants, whatever, some of these shorter passing concepts, it's just, Oregon secondary just didn't have an answer for him in certain parts of the game. Now, it's okay. They kept everything in front of them. They didn't allow maybe a lot of huge run after catches to be able to happen throughout this contest. But that's something that I believe that this Oregon secondary needs to be able to work on. They didn't get tested a lot down the field, so it's really hard to say how they're going to fare against maybe some teams that are going to be, I don't want to maybe say a little bit more pass heavy, but how are they going to fare against teams that are a little bit more balanced and maybe push the ball down the field a little bit more? This was not really a test. We didn't really find out a lot about how that is going to be. But in terms of the short, quick passing game, we have some examples that maybe that's something that Oregon really needs to focus on, that they really need to be able to dial in on over these next couple of weeks. Look, was it perfection? No. Does it need to be perfection? Also, no. Okay, so I think that the secondary and the passing defense and some of these shorter concepts, that's something that needs to be worked on, I think, over as these next couple of weeks continue to go out through here. But overall, I think this was as good of a performance that Oregon, I think, could probably have in week number 1. I think there's a lot of confidence coming out of this performance. Big win for the Ducks, 59-13 over Montana State. A lot to be able to build on from this performance. Let's dive right now into my top performers from this matchup. Of course, you got to talk about quarterback Dante Moore, 18 of 23, 213 yards, 3 touchdowns. Remember that over-under that I had on the show about a week or so ago? 29.5. Hey, that's 3 touchdowns. That's a pretty good dent to be able to get to that point. Amari Washington, 5 tackles and 1.5 tackles for loss in this game. Malik Benson, 5 receptions, 51 yards and a score. Mateo Uwayangalele, 2 tackles and 2 sacks. He's trying to get to 13. He's trying to get to that Oregon school record, and like maybe Dante in getting past a certain point, Mateo with 2 sacks in this game, getting home a couple of times when maybe it was a little bit more difficult to do so because of the quick quick releases and quick concepts that Montana State was doing from a passing game perspective. And, let's give a shout out, okay, because these freshman running backs, they looked good. You got to be excited about what Oregon has in the backfield in the coming years. Jordan Davison, 6 rushes, 26 yards. That might not be ultra impressive, but he finished down near the goal line with 3 touchdowns. 3 touchdowns in this game. I thought De'Air Hill was really good as well. And I think the thing about the running back room, okay, and maybe we'll dive into this now. I think the thing about the running back room is all these guys are going to get the football. All these guys. I think, Jay Harris got in the game fairly early. You saw Jaden Lamar get the first touchdown of the season, which I'm not sure a lot of people would have predicted that. We didn't see Mekhi Hughes until very late into the first half and into the second half. What does that mean? A lot of people were saying, did he get banged up? We didn't really hear that coming out of fall camp of the first week of practice. Was it disciplinary? Maybe. Possibly. We did hear some things coming out of camp that be like, hey, this is more of a battle between Hughes and Whittington. Okay? So we just don't know. We just don't know what that deal is. I think the thing that we can certainly take away, though, is there's a lot of depth, and I think guys are going to remain fresh throughout this game. I don't think we saw Dink Riggs maybe until the second half, garbage time-ish for Dink, and a lot of people are excited about what he can bring to the table this year. So depth aplenty. There's plenty of guys that are going to get run this year. I think like this game, once again, Dan was always going to get a lot of people onto the field in this game. Okay, there was always going to be a lot of depth because you got to use these first few games to be able to figure out, okay, who exactly is going to be impact players once we get towards that Penn State game. And then after Penn State, it's Indiana. And then by that time, you're into October, you're into November. So you got to use these. You got to get as many people out there on the field, right, to be able to figure out exactly who are going to be those impact players for you right now. But yeah, Jordan Davison, definitely in there. I think he could certainly be the short yardage back for Oregon. So I would keep an eye on that here in the next coming weeks as well. So let's dive a little bit now more into the box score and how this thing ended up. I talked about Dante. Austin Novosad got in the game. He 1 for 2 for 40 yards. Noah Whittington, 10 carries, 68 yards, and a score in this game. How about Luke Moga getting loose on a 25-yard run a little bit later on during the game? They got Brock Thomas into the game towards the end of this thing as well. Gary Bryant Jr., mentioned him, 4 catches, 31 yards, and a touchdown. DeCornian Moore, just 3 catches, 26 yards in this matchup. We head over to the defensive side of the football. We talked about Amari Washington already. Tatum Tuioti had 5 tackles and a TFL. Blake Purchase got in there 3 times and a TFL. I thought Jerry Mixon had a pretty solid game. Jerry got in there 4 times. Peyton Woodyard, Dylan Thieneman all had 4 tackles throughout this game. A lot of rotation, a lot of guys out there on defense for Oregon throughout this game. Let's dive into the chat right now. We are going to open up the phone lines. There it is. The phone lines are open. 541-357-6390. Once again, that's 541. There we go. I can do it. 357-6390. So the TSW text line, the TSW talk line is open now. So let's hear from you. But while we're waiting on that, let's dive into the live chat over here on YouTube. Let's start with Rick Goodman. Noah will be RB1 this year, not Hughes. Your thoughts, Ted? Now, I've been on record saying that I believe Noah Whittington was going to maybe have his best season of his career. 779 yards back in 2022. That was the best season so far that Noah has had. But I think I saw some good things from Noah today. I think when fully healthy, he's got a lot of pop. I think he's got a lot of power. We just don't know what the situation was, I think, with we don't know what the situation was with Mekhi Hughes. We don't know if that was disciplinary. We don't know if he was a little bit banged up. But I certainly believe, it would not surprise me if we get midway through the season and Noah Whittington is the 1A to the 1B for Mekhi Hughes when all is said and done. Battles checking in. Big W. Converted some big third downs here today. Duck Disciple checking in. He says Febu. He says Febu today. Blues Duck checking in. That's my guy. That's my guy out there. Freshman running back scores 2 touchdowns. No one even knows his name. Well, we know his name. I think it was 3 touchdowns for Mr. Jordan Davis, and I'm excited to see what he can provide this season. I'm really pumped to see how he could come into short yardage situations, and then maybe De'Aaron Hill towards the end of this game showed a lot of pop in the run game, a lot of speed, a lot of quickness. I'm excited to see maybe what he can do in there as well. Bob Larson shouting out my typo. Hey, when you want to get live as fast as I want to get to, sometimes you type a little bit too quickly. But great show, great game. This is exactly how Oregon should have started this season, and they executed. Executed, I think, is the thing that I really want to be able to hit home the most. And I think when you're able to execute at this level in game number 1, regardless of the opponent, I think that's a really good start, specifically considering the amount of new guys, considering the amount of new talent on this team. Jeff Hagan chiming in. Lanning rotated early and often. Love the confidence. Yeah, it was about confidence. It was about getting guys on the field to figure out what exactly they had. And it's also worth noting Theron Johnson. Theron Johnson was not available for this game. I thought Theron would be a starting corner when this game started. Second team All Big Ten performer from Northwestern last season. So it looks like we saw Ife Obadegbu and Brandon Finney were the guys that went out there first. Now, I will say this. There were people kind of tweeting out, members of the media saying these are in warm-ups. These guys are running with the ones on offense. These guys are running with the ones on defense. And that's great. That's fine. But I also believe it's worth noting that this was always going to be a deep rotation. And I think even once we get to the middle of the season, just because somebody starts, it doesn't mean that all of a sudden this guy is going to get 90% of the snaps and the next guy is going to get 10% of the snaps. At some positions, there is a deep and a healthy rotation. So maybe don't put too much stock as to like this guy's the starter. For starters, it's, in some position. Now, in other positions, yeah, there are going to be guys where they're going to get a significant amount of time and, the second team guys aren't going to get as much time on the field. Robin, yay Ducks. Everybody's happy in the flock here this evening. Jeff Hagan also chiming in. No answer for Amari. None. 0 answer for Amari Washington out there. I'm really curious to see how Amari, right? Because next week we're going to play a Big 12 team. Next week Oregon will match up against the Cowboys of Oklahoma State. Okay. So Oklahoma State's not a good football team. Okay, let's just put that out there right away. And their starting quarterback is injured. Okay, so those are things we need to take into consideration. But once in Northwestern, also not a good football team, losing big on the road to Tulane. Now, Oregon State doesn't look like a good football team, So, but I'm just curious. Once we get to offensive lines that are maybe going to be a little bit bigger, once we get to some of these teams that are going to be a little bit step up in competition, is Amari Washington going to be able to remain as dominant? I believe he's going to be. I believe he's going to be dominant no matter who they play. I think he's going to give an offensive line. I think he's going to give like Penn State. I think he's going to give them a problem. And all of the other, some of these other teams. Iowa has a really good, really big, and a really good offensive line who the Ducks will play a little bit later on during the season. I think Amari Washington is going to give them problems. I am so excited. Maybe I haven't been as vocal about my Amari Washington hype and how excited I am about him, but man, he is going to be a stud. For maybe people saying, well, okay, you're losing some of these guys in here at defensive tackle. Okay, what's going to happen now? Are they going to be able to play at that level? Amari Washington looks like it, but it certainly looked like there was a pretty healthy rotation. I mean, we saw Tion Gray out there, we saw Aiden Breland out there, we saw Terrence Green out there, we saw Bear Alexander out there a little bit as well. It's once again, it's one game. wanted to get it deep and a healthy rotation. I know, Ted, you said that already. I know maybe I sound like a little bit of a broken record, but that's what they want to do throughout these first couple of games. But we did hear late in fall camp, okay, Bear Alexander was no guarantee to be able to start in that defensive tackle spot next to the nose tackle that is Amari Washington. And today's game was maybe backing up that intel that we heard throughout fall camp. But here's the thing, folks. There might be USC fans that show up on your Twitter and be like, oh, this is what you get when you get Bear. But even if Bear doesn't really produce at a level that maybe the Oregon coaching staff wants him to, I know that kind of sounds kind of funky, but you got Tion Gray in there. You got Terrence Green in there, like Aiden Brilliant. You got dudes in there. That's why this was always a low-risk transfer in Bear Alexander. So if he doesn't produce, I know maybe there's some people that say, hey, we went out and got a guy we want with experience. We want him to do well. So I'm very curious to see how the defensive tackle rotation is going to play out throughout the course of the season. Robert Cox, 253 yards passing, 253 yards rushing, and the only loss on a play was the kneel down at the end of the game. They shouldn't count that, but they will. But they will. It I think shows offensively how good the offensive line was today. Now, we know Emmanuel Pranon went out with an injury. I was kind of nervous when they showed the replay, I'm going to be honest with you. When they showed the replay of him getting rolled up on his knee, I wasn't quite sure exactly. But when I saw him walking off the field to the locker room, that was a good sign. And, of course, when he came back onto the field, that was also a good sign. It's also worth noting, Dave Iuli gets the start at right guard today. There was that battle between Iuli and Matthew Bedford. It's Iuli that went out there. Remember, Dave, he started the final 4 games of last season following the injury to Marcus Harper. I think a lot of people were out there just penciling in Matthew Bedford, right? Because I think he was slated to start on the offensive line last year before he got injury, and then he kind of caused this whole mess of everybody kind of rotating in there. But Dave Iuli, maybe people sleeping on him a little bit. He gets a start there. We saw a little bit of Kawika Rogers when Pranon went down, and we saw some shuffling in there as well. So there was a healthy rotation after the injury on the offensive line. But yeah, they were able to impose their will at the line of scrimmage from the word go, certainly today. Robert Cox chiming in. Mateo starts out with 2 sacks. Big Dave, he's pumped about that. Yeah, it was a good day. It was a good day for Mateo to be able to get those couple of sacks in there. And once again, I'm just curious, like next week against Oklahoma State, we'll see what we see when maybe there's a team that's going to be a little bit more, I don't want to say dynamic with the passing attack, but there's a lot more to offer with the passing attack where you're really going to see exactly what this Oregon pass rush is going to be able to do. Reminder, folks, the TSOW Talk and Text line is open, 541-357-6390, so you can call in and we can chat about what happened today out there on the field at Autzen Stadium. The best channel in the world chiming in. So I guess I'm second place. I guess I'm chopped liver over here. No, just kidding. That's the username from the user chiming in here in the live chat. What did you think today about the defense? Okay, number one, I thought the run defense was stout. And the run defense, they talked about it in the press availability this week. Okay? The run defense is what needed to be stout. Based on kind of how last season ended, that's something that they really wanted to improve on. They have been focusing on in fall camp, and they wanted to show just how good it was going to be. Okay? So that's number one. So I thought they did really good there against a team that wanted to run the football and run it a lot. Okay, I'm just pulling it up here exactly what Montana State did from a rushing perspective as a team. 27 carries, 46 yards on the ground for the Bobcats. That's 1.7 yards per carry. Breaking it down, Julius Davis, 5 carries for 16 yards. Adam Jones, 9 carries for 15 yards, and he had that last touchdown. So they just had absolutely nothing to do with the run game. So I thought that was good. The secondary, I mean, Taco Dowler, the wide receiver, I mean, with some of those short passing concepts, he just continued to get open and get open and get open. 12 receptions, 107 yards throughout this game. So that's something that they need to be able to work on. So I'm curious to see how much the secondary improves maybe as we get to week 2, get to week 3, to be able to limit kind of that short catch and run type of stuff. But if there's a positive, I think you can take away from the secondary, they kept a lot of these things in front of them, which I think is important to be able to prevent some of those big plays down the field. Jeff chiming in again. Lanning used James as short yardage back as a true freshman. Rick chiming in. That running back room is deep. I mean, I come away from this game once again knowing that Dan and company wanted to get a healthy rotation in there at a lot of spots, but I come into this game looking at the running back room and I'm like, okay, I don't know what this is going to look like, because I'm anticipating early in this game, okay, Mekhi Hughes is going to be out there, Noah Whittington is going to be out there, and then we'll get into Dink, and then we'll get into maybe some of the freshmen, Jay Harris, Jaden Lamar, and all that. But no, Jaden Lamar gets on the field in the first drive of the game, which I'm not sure if I really expected that, but maybe Jaden Lamar is somebody that we're sleeping on this season. Rashad Samples, running back coach, talked about his long speed, how they wanted to get that on the field during spring this year. And people have been seeing everybody raving about De'Aaron Hill. They're like, okay, maybe they're trying to get his speed versus Jaden Lamar's, but maybe it's not an either or. Maybe it's just like, let's keep everybody fresh, because it's about not being banged up at the end of the year. We've seen what has happened when Bucky Irving is banged up and not really 100% in the Pac-12 championship game. We've seen when Jordan James gets injured in the Rose Bowl, right? So you need to be able to keep these guys fresh, and maybe this is about the longevity in the running back room. That kind of leads into Tim's question. Why didn't Hughes play more? We don't know. To my knowledge, this was not an injury thing. So that makes it seem that it could be disciplinary somehow. We heard throughout fall camp, okay, maybe Whittington is pushing Hughes a lot more, because there were a lot of people that be like, they're just, okay, Mekhi Hughes is going to be the number one. Look at that production that he did at Tulane. Look at his film. He's going to be the clear substitute for Jordan James. But I don't think it's that black and white. I don't think it's that cut and dry. And if you were looking for more of an answer after this Montana State game, which probably shouldn't have been doing that anyway, but if you were looking for an answer, it's a lot more muddy. It's a lot more muddy than clear water when it comes to the running back room as well. Retired nurse, where was Bear? Bear was just a part of a really deep rotation throughout this game. I think that's the truth of the matter. Tim also chimes in, looked like Bear was out there a little bit. Rick chiming in once again that Noah is above Hughes on the depth chart, and there's nothing wrong with that. I think Oregon has so many, they've got different talent. Not only do they have a lot of running backs, they've got a lot of different frames, body types, and skill sets. Like Jordan Davison, for example, okay, right at the goal line, 3 touchdowns, punches it in, great. But he's got a very different body frame than a lot of people on this in this running back room. I mean, you look at somebody like Mekhi Hughes, Noah Whittington. All these guys are a lot different, and I think they all bring something to the table, and I think that's going to be utilized. I said before, and I'm like, well, one of my bold predictions a while ago, I don't even remember when that show was like, okay, there's going to be no 1,000-yard rusher during the regular season. Maybe there may not be an 800-yard rusher during. Okay, maybe that's a little bit drastic. Maybe there won't be a 900-yard rusher during the season. Maybe you have like 850, 800, 600, and there's just so on and so forth. Maybe there's more depth, and it's going to be spread out a little bit more than we anticipated. And I think we anticipated it was going to be spread out, and the depth was going to be there a little bit as well. Oregon wins 59-13 today. You can call in to the TSLW talk line to chat some Duck football here today, 541-357-6390. Jeff, question, says, what was your impression of the inside linebackers? I thought Jerry Mixon played a pretty good game today. Here's the thing, though. I didn't think that there was too much stress on them today. So, and once again, it's Montana State. You can't really do an absolutely hardcore evaluation of this game, but I thought Mixon played I think they did what they were supposed to do, right? The defensive line ate up some blocks in the middle, and they filled the gaps. And when you take a look at the run game, there weren't any missed tackles. There weren't a lot of runs that got bounced to the outside. I thought everybody did exactly what they were supposed to do. Jerry Mixon had 4 tackles in this game. Bryce Betcher had 3 tackles in this game from an inside linebacker spot. Devin Jackson had a couple of stops in this game. I'm curious to hear, and this was kind of a little bit of a tidbit that we heard late in fall camp. I'm very curious to hear if Jerry Mixon, how much he's going to be able to push Devin Jackson. Jerry Mixon had the most tackles of any linebacker. I guess you could count Tatum Tuiota. He's a jack linebacker, but he's kind of an edge guy. But and most tackles of an inside linebacker today, and played really well during the spring, really progressed a lot during the fall. So that's something that I'm curious of. I'll certainly have my eyes on as we go on further. Retired Nurse chimes in. The wide receiver and running back room is deep. I think when you take a look at the amount of guys that are going to get on the field this season, and I'm not necessarily, maybe I'm using Montana State as a little bit as a barometer and a little bit of an example. I think you're going to see more guys at the running back position than you are the wide receiver position. Said that towards the beginning of this show. Gary Bryant Jr., Malik Benson, DeCorian Moore. I think that's going to be your top 3. And I've kind of felt that way for some time now. I think the other, it's going to be Malik Benson, or is it going to be Jeremiah McClellan? Okay, but Benson has that experience out there, and I think McClellan can be a good, number 4, number 5 type of option. We saw Justice Lowe a little bit in that game. After those top 3 at wide receiver, I feel like it's Jeremiah McClellan. I feel like it's Justice Lowe. Okay, those are kind of the 2 guys that really come up into my mind. Kyler Casper, don't think he played as well during the spring. Maybe don't think he played as well here. But they are going to take advantage of his size, of his height. I feel pretty confident about that this season. Retired Nurse, even the special teams look great with 2 blocked punts. Yeah, this game just started with an absolute bang. I'm watching this game, and I'm like, Oregon can do absolutely nothing wrong. It was when Montana State figured out, okay, this run game isn't going to work. And then they realized, okay, we got to go to the short passing stuff, and they were able to move the football a little bit doing that. You got to give credit to them to be able to adjust on the fly like that. But that's kind of the one thing, as I mentioned throughout this show so far, where they need to be able to get better at, I think, as we get to these next few games. But, man, that beginning of the game was fantastic. I really would have liked to seen them after the block punt to be able to convert that into a touchdown. But, man, I mean, you can't have everything. You can't have every present on Christmas. Sometimes field goals are okay. Points are okay. I don't think, I was, once again, I was writing my game recap for Scoop Duck. So once this game was well out of hand, I was kind of focused on that. I don't think we saw the punt team today. So poor James Ferguson out there, right? Transfer from Boise State. He's looking to get on the field. Hey, this is what I can do in terms of flipping the field and field position. No, you didn't get on the field today because this offense was that efficient, because this offense was that good. Glenn heard that there were 61 players in the first half hit the field on offense. Think about that. There are 11 players allowed on the field at one time. 61 in the first half. That is crazy. Crazy. That is insanity. And I think that just speaks once again to be like, hey, Dan wanted to get a lot of these guys on the field. I'm really curious once we get to specifically maybe game 4. What is that? It's Oregon State, right? Once we get to game 4, how many players are going to be hitting the field? I got to imagine it's not going to be 61. Okay, that would be what I think. Okay, but maybe it will be. Just how deep is this team going to be? Because usually you start early in the season, there's a lot of guys battling for spots, and then once you get towards the middle of the season, guys separate, and then you want to be able to get those guys on the field more consistently instead of getting a whole bunch of guys on the field. But maybe all of these guys can contribute this season. A lot of freshmen out there. A lot of freshmen look really good. But Reno Lee chiming in with a very good point. He says, I thought that Nasir Wyatt's sack was special. So Nasir is somebody that's been, I think he hit campus, I want to say around like 205. I think it was definitely below 210, but I think it was around 205. And he's put on 20 pounds since he's got the campus, which is really good for a true freshman. This is why you enroll early to be able to get into this college strength and conditioning program. Shout out Wilson Love. But I think he's going to be involved in a lot of these speed rushing, situational type of stuff for Oregon this year. Right? If they're looking to get that NASCAR package where they want to bring Blake Purchase off the edge, they want to bring they want to have Aiden Breland, who's a really good and a really quick interior rusher. They want to have him out there, of course, like Mateo. I think you could see Nasir Wyatt on the field as well. I do. I think he could play in meaningful football this year and make an impact in certain third down situations for the Ducks. And I'm really excited to see what he can do this season. Seen Strauss saying what we're all saying right now. Go Ducks! Go Ducks! Getting a big win here today. Ducks fan 77. Not a lot of penalties out there today. Not a lot of penalties. If you'll give me a moment, I can scroll through and probably find just how many penalties there were throughout this game. Penalties, 7 penalties, 54 yards for Montana State. Just 3 penalties for 29 yards for the Ducks in this specific matchup. Rick asks, how many different players caught passes today? Well, I can tell you, and I'm pretty sure I tweeted this or wrote it in my article. No, maybe that was Rushers. We got Malik Benson, Jay Harris, Kyler Casper, Gary Bryant Jr., DeCorian Moore, Kenyon Sadiq, Jeremiah McClellan, Justice Lowe, Cooper Perry got out there, Mekhi Hughes. That's 10. 10 guys caught passes for the Ducks today. 19 receptions, 253 yards. And 13 yards per reception. A long reception of 50 on that third down. I think it was a third down and long when they got it to Jay Harris, and he got out of the field. Jay is kind of somebody in that running back room where maybe he was a little bit overlooked by people like myself, but he got onto the field in the first half in key situations, and then he showed a little bit of a speed. He's kind of been known as maybe more of a little bit. He's maybe not as big as somebody like Jordan Davison, but he's been maybe known as maybe more of a power guy, where Jaden Lamar was more of a speed guy. I think we saw a fair amount of boogie, fair amount of scoot from Jay Harris today. So don't sleep on him possibly making an impact and just coming up in key situations to help the Ducks this season. 61 seemed like too many. In games like this, it's better to get experience than to not get experience. And you got a lot of people getting experience today. Reminder, you can call in and talk Ducks with me, 541-357-6390. That's 541-357-6390. The Cross 12 coming in saying, Amari in the backfield every play. Dude's get off is elite. That speed and quickness combined with being 6'4", 335, 336 pounds. It doesn't get bigger and badder and quicker and faster than that. Now, one thing worth noting, linebacker was brought up by Jeff a little bit earlier in the show. And there was no Dylan Williams and no Braden Platt. They were both out in the injury report in this one. Patrick Ryman comes in. Did Mathuti get in at linebacker? I will have to go back and check PFF after this game is over to see if he got on the field for some snaps. I did not notice him out there, and as soon as I say that, I look through the box score, and he had 1 tackle. So he was out there, but it certainly didn't seem like a lot. It seemed like the significant linebacker rotation throughout this game was the following. It seemed like it was, of course, Bryce Betcher, Devin Jackson, Jerry Mixon. It seemed like those guys got a lot of run from the inside linebacker spot so far, and then you didn't see a lot outside of that. Now, once again, you don't have Braden Platt, you don't have Dylan Williams. So I think inside linebacker was going to be a little bit shallow. It was not certainly going to be as deep of a rotation throughout this game. I think that was maybe the expectation coming in once we knew that with the injury report. But yeah, Mathuti was the only other linebacker that tallied a tackle outside of those top three that I talked about throughout this game. Ducks win 59-13 today over the Montana State Bobcats. A truly impressive performance right out of the gate. When we get to Monday's edition of that show out west, I'm going to maybe break this thing down just a little bit more. And really dive into, I'll do a rewatch likely tomorrow. So once I do that rewatch, I'll really be able to kind of focus in on some more things that really stood out to me throughout this game. We can talk Ducks right now. You can call in 541-357-6390. That's 541-357-6390. Montana State quarterback, well, Justin Lamson, okay, he did a little bit better throwing the ball in this game than the last time he fared off against the Ducks. 23 of 31, 198 yards. Now, no touchdowns, but he also didn't turn the football over. A lot of those completions were to Taco Dowler. In fact, half of them, around half of them, 12 of his 23 completions were to Dowler throughout this game as well. So Oregon just took care of business, and that's what they needed to do. They started off, I think, on a really good note. They started off strong. They started off exactly the way they needed to throughout this game. So when you take a look at the evaluation, I think the positive that you can take is you look around at a lot of other teams in college football, and you can see like, some teams, in week one, especially now with like portal and a lot of there's more new players on a team than there have been in past generations of college football. Sometimes it can take teams a little bit to get going. But I think the confidence that you can take for Oregon is they started off strong. They executed at an extremely high level, and they're going to be able to propel that, I think, to the next level. So a lot of good things to say, okay? And when you play a team like Montana State, you're not going to – a lot of maybe your weaknesses aren't going to be exposed. I say that, and then look what happened last year when they kicked off the season against Idaho. But this is it's a different season. It's a different team. I think the more that these guys get on the field, okay, the better that this team is going to be. But they started off really well with a lot of energy, and they were just doing anything that they absolutely wanted to do throughout this game. So going to have a show, TSOW, wrapping things up on this game fully on Monday. And then on Thursday, we are going to start looking ahead to Oklahoma State. All right, that's when we are going to have our scouting report. That's when we're going to have our preview. That's when we're going to have our prediction. When I was looking at Oklahoma State before the season, considering that they were 3-9 and 0-9 in the Big 12 last year, I'm like, okay, yeah, I think Oregon's going to take care of business. In my preseason predictions, I had Oregon winning 45-7. Now, without their starting quarterback and they're down to another redshirt freshman, this could get ugly, especially considering what we saw from Oregon here today against Montana State, but maybe we'll cross that bridge when we come to it, certainly on Thursday's show. Not much else left to say. Oregon dominant, doing what they should do and playing how they should play out there. Let's check in here with Blues Duck. Dante, 18 of 24. Let's see, 2 of the 5 incompletions were drop touchdowns by Sadiq. I did see that one. Okay, trying to go with Sadiq near the sideline, an uncharacteristic drop by the tight end over there. So I think with Sadiq, let's talk about Kenyon a little bit, because I was looking at the box score after this game, and I was kind of like, okay, Kenyon, one catch in this game. for 20 yards. But that one catch, just beast mode. Just get off me. But I think one area, and Jake Butt talked about this on the broadcast, and we already know this. If you've been watching that show, we highlighted it during the offseason, okay, he's a great end line blocker. He is a fantastic blocker. Like when we talk about the success that the run game could have, everybody's going to talk about the big boys up front on the offensive line, but Kenyon put a lot of really good things out there just to prove how much he's improved as a blocker. So when you talk about these running backs getting the edge, getting the corner, being able to bounce it to the outside, Kenyon is a guy that can seal that, and he can seal that consistently. Okay. Reno brings up a point here. Okay. What about Big Ten Network butchering Iffy's name? Okay. That's okay. That's fine. But, well, maybe it's not fine. You, as a broadcaster, you should be on that stuff. But can we call Kyler Casper by his correct name? I heard Kyle Casper a lot. I thought I heard another one. I don't know if it was Kalen Casper. And I remember this from the spring game as well on BTN. I'm like, just say Kyler. Just read the sheet in front of you. You shouldn't need a phonetic spelling for Kyler. That's one thing. I'm like, God, man, I don't know. That's one thing I noticed. And I'm like, this is not difficult. This is not difficult. Jeff Hagan, I'm ready for the Gundy. I'm a man. I'm 40 clip multiple times this week. It's coming. It's coming. You got to be ready for it. In Oklahoma State, they got to have some boys got to turn to men real quick, I think, for the Cowboys to be able to hold strong with Oregon because, man, if this continues, these next few games, considering what we saw out of Oklahoma State, Northwestern looked like a bad team. I mean, Preston Stone, threw 4 picks? 4 picks today? Something like that? Oh, man. Yeah, and then you look at Oregon State. Like, Oregon could roll and roll big in a lot of these games. So, yeah, it could get real big, real fast here once we get through this non-conference schedule. But some things to work on for sure. But, man, there's a lot of positives, a ton of positives to go out here today. Brian Erickson chimes in. I don't think Lanning wanted to showcase Kenyon today. This was and I said this at the beginning of the show. I thought Will Stein did what I expected him to do. I said in the preview, he's going to have opportunities, considering Montana State was starting 2 redshirt freshmen. He's going to have opportunities to fire it deep. How many times did he fire it deep? Maybe once on that 2-minute drive at the end of the first half. Maybe. But this was all. It's what I expected it to be. It's be like, all right, let's run the ball. Let's be physical. Let's get a lot of guys out there. Let's get a lot of guys experience. Let's get it to guys on some slants, on some short passing stuff, and let's just do that. And you put 59 points on the board. So I think it worked out pretty well. But I just look at Kenyon and I'm like, man, you get him once we get more games and once you kind of get a little bit further on down the line, I think you're going to see a lot more of Kenyon Sadiq, certainly, within this offense. This is retired nurse chiming in. Dan said they learned from the Idaho game. He thought the coaches wore out the team the week before the game. So I haven't been able, obviously I've been on here talking to you guys. I haven't been able to take in the press conferences. So that's maybe one thing that I will do here as the night wraps up. See what they had to say. And I'll probably feature some of those sound bites on Monday's show of That Show Out West. But overall, a great performance. And it's not something, I got a lot of thoughts in my mind. I don't want to communicate them because I don't want everybody to get too excited. But this was a good start. I'll just put it that way. It was a good start. You should be confident. You should be excited. But you should also look at this game against Montana State, a team that lost a lot from last year's FCS runner-up. And you should say, all right, now let's do it against Oklahoma State. Do the same thing. Put up a 40 spot. Put up a 50 spot. okay? Even though they're not a good team. Let's do it against Northwestern on the road, traveling across a couple of time zones. Let's do it then. Okay? Let's do it against Oregon State. You keep on putting up 40 points a game. You put up 50 points a game, and then you get to Penn State on the road, and then let's see what happens from there. Jason Hughes chiming in. I know it's the first game. And it's the thing, you just got to keep on saying that, because as soon as you say something to be like about a position group or a guy and praise him, and then, some people are going to be like, oh, but it was Montana State. So you have to preface that with all of this, and it's the first game of the year. Anyway, Jason's saying, I know it's the first game, but I can say 12-0 and Big Ten champs and win the Natty. See, I didn't even read the rest of his comment. And then what I prefaced it as, he kind of went in the direction that I was trying to avoid. But I love it. I love the confidence from Jason over there. This is a team that can, if they continue to develop, they're going to be there. I mean, look at today. Let's look at today, for example. Texas did not look good. Now, Ohio State's defense looks for real. They look really good. Okay? So let's put that out there. Okay? Alabama, I don't even know what happened with the Alabama game. Did they lose? I don't know. I saw they were down 24-7 to Florida State at one point. I'm not sure how that game finished up. And Alabama was a team a lot of people predicted could be a national championship team themselves. So that kind of goes back to what I said at the beginning of this thing. Some teams out there weren't playing the best to start off the season. And for Oregon to kind of come out and play exactly how they played, I mean, that's exactly what you want. That's exactly what you need. Retired nurse, it is clear that Oregon has more depth than last season. Look, it's just, okay, so retired nurse coming in. I'll get to your point here in just a minute. Alabama lost. Wow. I did not expect that. Maybe I'll talk more about that here in just a minute. But this is an Oregon program. 31-17. Florida State went 2-10 last year. And everybody's talking about Bama. Bama. Okay, maybe I'll get into that here in just a little bit. But, there's clearly more depth. There was a lot of national people, a lot of people with respected names out there saying, well, I kind of look at this Oregon team and look at all the guys that they lost from last season. And you're finding out. But people somehow, it's so weird to me. People forget, just put it out of their minds that, Oregon's recruited back-to-back top 5 recruiting classes. And they've kept all these guys. Not all these guys, but you get the idea. They kept a lot of these guys. And Oregon has shown, I know maybe some people in other fan bases don't say that, but Oregon develops really well. So these guys are going to hit the field at some point. Okay, they just don't drift off into space. They're going to play. And we're seeing them play. And we're seeing them play really good. But once again, just one game against a team like Montana State. Okay, let's. I want to tackle, because this is an Oregon show, but I did want to. So Alabama. Oh my gosh, I can't believe they lost. And it's not like I was checking the score throughout that game, because I was reading people on Twitter saying, "Oh my God, look at Alabama! Look at Alabama! Look at Alabama!" But they lose to Florida. Maybe Florida State's better. But yeah, that Florida State quarterback was Castellanos. He was talking some junk in the offseason. He backed it up. So props to you. Props to you, sir, for backing it up. We can talk some Oregon football if you want to call into the TSW talk line, 541-357-6390. That's 541-357-6390. Amrit coming in saying, maybe getting a little bit late here. That's okay. As long as you join before we go off the air, that's what matters. But that was a running team. And I feel like the secondary had problems, not reflected by the scoreboard, obviously. And yeah, those are things that I talked about. Like, because to kind of get you caught up here, this is kind of what I was saying. Okay? So Montana State figured out very early in this game, Amari Washington is a freaking dude. This defensive line, we have no answer for. And they're going to clog run lanes all day long. We need to figure something out in the passing game. And that's where they got the short stuff, right? Oregon didn't allow anything deep. And I don't think Montana State was going to be a team that was going to sling it deep. But this was Montana State did complete a lot of the short stuff in front of them. And you're going to get to, I think, passing offenses a little bit later in the season. Maybe if they're able to get some of that short stuff, you have guys that are explosive enough. You have guys that are fast enough where Montana State couldn't do that, where maybe those guys can turn it into a big eight. So that is an area that the secondary has to be able to shore up. I thought that they would be better in this game to kind of start off because there is a lot of talent back there, but there is a lot of inexperience. So maybe with a couple of games, we're going to see them do a little bit better. Jeff chiming in. Dante Moore looks way more accurate in the flat than I expected. So, look, I'm watching Dante throughout this game, and I'm sure I'll maybe see this in the rewatch as well. And I'm kind of comparing it to what I watched last year with Dylan Gabriel. All right? I'm seeing Dante, the release in the flat, the changing of the arm. Sometimes you kind of get a little bit to the side, 45-degree angle on a throw. But, I mean, there's just so much zip on the football, and he's just got so much confidence, and he just looks so damn comfortable right now. What's he going to look like once you get further on during the season? Now, you can take that a couple of ways. Hey, the more experience that he has, playing good football, making good decisions, and making good throws, he's going to, his confidence is going to grow. But now, what's going to happen when Dante Moore gets hit a little bit, right? He had no pressure on him today. And we don't know. We can't answer that question right now. And I don't expect anybody to answer that question. But what's going to happen when they get that type of pressure? When Dante is under duress a little bit. And I think it's also worth noting this about Dante. Okay, so I'm watching this game, and we get to second play of the game, third play of the game, and Dante's running, and they're doing design QB run. Yeah, this was a game where I've said it, Will Stein's not really doing a ton. He's not really showing a ton on offense. But then he goes out there and he does design QB run with Dante. And I saw some people on Twitter and kind of following along on the Scoop Duck thread and be like, dude, don't do that against Montana State. Don't do it. But I was like, I kind of, after I watched it, I kind of took a little bit of time to digest it. I'm sure I'll kind of look at it back on the rewatch and I'll see what it looks like. But I kind of look at that and I'm like, it intrigues me a little bit. His speed is not something that we've been talking a lot during the offseason. We've heard recently that he's certainly taken an uptick in that department. So now if you can, on top of what he can do from a throwing perspective, you can add the run on top of it. I mean, that's a dangerous combination out there. Dante Moore played as good as any quarterback in the country here in week number 1. And I want to can I talk about Bama for a little bit? So we're not, and this is once again, this is an Oregon program, so we'll do this and we'll pivot quickly back. Sad Bama last season was equal best season. That's what Jeff says here right now. But boy, there was already heat on Kalen DeBoer. They went 9-3 in the regular year. Thought they should have been in the playoff, and then they go out and lose to Michigan. They went 9-4 last year. And then Kalen DeBoer loses the opener against that Florida State team. They're going to be on him this week. Paul. They're going to be calling into the Feinbaum show, and they're going to be yelling. Let me say that. Reno Lee, the Oregon game. It was so much fun. It's just a Terry on top to see a dejected and defeated Kalen DeBoer. What a day. What a day for Duck fans. We'll see what Washington does. I'm sure Washington will beat Colorado State later today. Not sure who Oregon State plays or if they've played already or how that's all gone down. But it could be a perfect weekend for the Ducks. So far, so good. Let's put it that way. Reno Lee says, I took the designed run, this is a designed QB run we're talking about, as confidence in the quarterback room. Yeah, I think they've got confidence in Dante to be able to make the right decisions. And that's just a wrinkle that they're going to maybe have a little bit more and a little bit more and a little bit more, I think, as we get throughout the season, especially, if they're running duo, they're running up the middle, they're going between the guards or whatever, and then all of a sudden Dante can pull it. He can go to the outside, 3rd and 5, he can break it off for 15. You break it off for 15. Rick Olson, doing the Lord's work right now. He's checking in maybe on the online community saying, Bama fans are melting down. Okay, so if you're a member obviously I work for Scoop Ducks. If you're a member of On3, if you're a member of 247 or whoever you're a member of, I suppose those are the only two options now. But go on to, these are the message boards I would recommend. These are the message boards. Texas was fun. Texas was fun looking at that today. Okay, that was good. I saw Message Board Geniuses put out something about them today. Alabama is going to be a fun message board that we're going to look to today. Maybe a little bit closer to home. Wisconsin, after having their quarterback injured again, that I'm sure could be a fun message board, and only scoring 17 points against a MAC team. That could be a lot of fun. So that's what week one. Everybody loves to overreact. And there's going to be some overreacting in some fan bases certainly out there. I got a comment here saying, look for Moga in a Wildcat formation. I know I kind of briefly said that after the spring game. It doesn't seem, and I said this at the time, it seems, like an interesting concept. But, and you saw his scoot, you saw his boogie, you saw exactly what he can do, man. But it doesn't seem like very Will Stein. That doesn't seem like something that he would do. Not saying he won't do it. It just doesn't seem like something. But you look at Moga and you look at his speed and his athleticism, it's certainly something that maybe you could see get on the field. Arch Manning did not look good today, man. Did not look good. Oregon State plays Cal a little bit later. Thank you, Jason, for getting me up to date on that information. Man, big win for the Ducks today, 59-13 over the Bobcats of Montana State. I think we're going to shut this one down. I want to thank everybody for coming in here to the inaugural regular season edition of that post-game show out west. Remember, after every game, probably maybe about a half an hour or so after every game, we're going to come on with that post-game show out west to kind of do what we did today. And I'm sure we'll perfect this. It's the first time we're doing this, obviously. So we'll perfect this by the time we get to the middle of the season. So 1-0. That's what matters. A lot of confidence built today. A lot of good things out there on the football field, and they're going to have time and opportunities to be able to fix some of the things that they need to throughout the season. So Monday, going to be having the total game recap of this game coming up then. So until then, we'll talk to you on Monday. Ducks win 1-0. Until next time, I'm Ted LaRue. This has been that post-game show out west.